What a glorious day for golf. Welcome. Today is day one, week one of my swing development system. This will be a roughly 12-week series. For those of you that have watched the introduction video, you understand the process, but there's basically going to be homework and then there's going to be range work. Be 2 videos a week, just as a recap. So let's go ahead and get this thing started up. As you guys know, I am a real stickler for the grip, the stance, the posture alignment, all fundamentals, but essentially my belief in the golf swing is that everything starts with the hands, because that's the last thing that's attached to the club and essentially the last thing that energy transfers through the golf club to the golf ball from. So today, week one, we're going to dive so deeply into the grip, you're going to hate me by the end of this, but luckily there's only 1 week of it, unless you guys aren't doing the work. And in that case, if you're not doing the work, it might take you a few extra weeks. All right. In order for us to talk about the grip and to really get this process started, we need to understand one basic analogy. The analogy is the grip itself is connected to our wrists, and we need to turn our wrists into 360-degree hinges by utilizing leverage and proper pressures so that we can actually spin the club both directions without any deviation in our arms. In other words, we have to be able to move the club in both directions through a 360-degree range, which if you guys have watched my original videos, I've talked about that, right? To learn how to utilize 360-degree movement of the wrists freely in both directions, leveraging the golf club, you are then ready for the next step, which will be the waggle. So in order for us to get to that step very quickly, in other words, in order for us to get there in only a week, this is the process. So the first thing we have to understand is that the grip has 3 axes of movement. There is the X axis, the Y axis, and then the Z axis, the depth, right? So if we were talking X, specifically up and down, that would be radial and ulnar deviation, right? Ulnar, radial deviation. And you need that in both wrists, okay? The next thing we would say is, okay, now we need our Y plane, which essentially would be our ability to pronate and supinate. That's our Y plane. As you can see, this would be like the base of a graph if we were an XY graph. Finally, we have our Z axis, which essentially is flexion and extension, right? Don't confuse that with ulnar and devial radiation, ulnar radiation, devial radiation. Don't confuse it with that, because essentially we're doing it from this plane. So from the corner of the graph towards you, essentially from our chest outward, we are now adding depth to our swing, so we now make it 3-dimensional. Now, if that's a bit confusing, don't worry about it. You don't need to know all that. What you need to understand is that we're going to be working the 3 axes of motion, in other words, flexion, extension, deviation, and pronation, supination, so that you are going to build the proper forearm strength to move it to the next phase of training. Now, I know there's a lot of you out there that probably think you've already figured the grip out, and that's fine. If you want to skip this, you're more than welcome to, but I can assure you, if you don't do this part of the training, the following 10 weeks are going to be extremely difficult for you. And again, we're talking literally 3 months away from having incredible ball striking skills, but you got to get week 1 right. This is the foundation. This is the most important piece. So strap in, guys, and get ready, because here comes the homework. So the first drill you're going to have to do this week, luckily all 3 of them can be done while sitting and watching television. We do them from the house because we do not want to use golf balls. So as you guys have learned, I have biomechanical drills, I have inertia drills, and then I have range drills. So you're going to be getting a piece of each of those every week. So you have to work them independently. But for your homework this week, we're going to stick with strictly biomechanical strengthening drills for the forearms and the hands. Drill number 1 is very simple. You guys have seen this before, but now we're going to take it to the next level where you're going to start training it. It's not just something you were playing around with. Now you've got repetitions, you've got homework to accomplish, okay? So as I've shown you, you need the palm and the forefinger to be able to leverage the golf club and lift it completely up and down on our x-axis, okay? And that includes both the right hand and the left hand, okay? Right hand's gonna be a lot easier, but again, when we're doing it, we only wanna utilize these two fingers. So make sure when you're doing this, you properly hold the golf club in your hand like so, right? It shouldn't be wrapped around like this. It shouldn't be held with fingers, like holding on with your pinky and your forefinger. I want these two fingers, like so. You leverage it in your palm, and then you lift, okay? I'm requiring between 25 and 100 reps a day for the next 5 days, okay? I want you guys to take, so I want you to take either Friday or Saturday off. You can either do 4 or 5 days in a row, and give your day a rest before you go to the range. Again, 25 in a row without stopping. Same with this one, 25 in a row. The slower you go, as you guys have learned from my neurological training, the better this will work for you. So be patient, take your time with it. This is not something you rush. I would rather you all do 25 slow reps a day than 100 fast reps, okay? If you want to try to do 100 a day, I recommend 4 sets of 25 starting out until you can do literally 100 of these without feeling any burn in your forearm, which is essentially what I can do now, but it's taken me years to develop that. So don't try to rush to the finish line here, guys. This is an iterative process, phased out process that's going to take time. Over the 12 weeks, you will develop tons of strength from this, but for the first week, I need you guys to, think of it as hitting the weight room. I need you to be very strong because the next phase of drills can cause injuries if you're not prepared. Okay, so the next piece, now that we have the X, the up and down axis figured out with both hands, we have to now work on pronating and supinating to work the y-axis, all right? That's simply leveraging the club, putting the last 3 fingers on in the left hand or your lead hand, and literally holding your arm above ground like so, pronating and supinating. And the reason we do it like this is because gravity makes it a little too easy to do it this way. So in order to build up strength, we do it at the highest level we can. Start at waist if holding it up like so is a little hard for you, and start down here if you can't even do it at the waist. Let gravity help you. And what I want you to do is, again, 25 to 100 reps with both the right and the left hand. So this is working that y-axis, right? Essentially the goal is 100 in a row from this angle, okay? And understand, you're only holding it with these 2 fingers. I do keep the pinky and the forefinger on here because if I don't, the toe drops because I just don't have enough strength in these fingers to hold it up. I mean, I do, but it's very difficult, and I start using biceps and stuff. We don't want that. We want to strictly use our forearms. So supinate, pronate, supinate, pronate, supinate, pronate, all right? 25 to 100 reps a day for the next 4 to 5 days. Okay, and now we have the final one, which the final piece of this is flexion extension, right? So that's our Z axis, where we're going to essentially work this type of motion, okay? So this was the first motion we worked, then we worked this, now we're going to work this motion. So what you do is you flip the club over and you grab the face of the golf club like so, and I want you guys, again, the higher up you can go with this, the better you're going to be. So this is going to be 25 reps in a row. And just so you guys understand, you want the top of the club to fit in this part of your hand right here. So when you grab it, essentially you're able to wrap your hand completely around the club like so, and then you flip it over. Make sure it's in there good and tight. Hold that arm out. I want you guys to make sure your core is embraced and all that. And then just give me 25 in a row. And I mean, slower is obviously better, but just do the best you can with this. If you can do 100 row, go for it. If you can't, hold off. So then you're going to go to your left hand. You're going to do the same thing. All right? Pretty simple stuff. But Now, because you've only worked one side of it, which is this side, now you have to turn over and work this side. So then you rotate your arm, supinate, and you go the opposite direction. You should feel a nice stretch where you just worked. So make sure you're working this direction first to warm this up. Then you flip your arm over so your palm is facing upwards, and you're giving me 25 to 100 in this position a day. Okay? So on the right hand, it's going to look like this. Then we're going to flip it over. We're going to go in the opposite direction. Again, we're going to feel a little bit of stress right here. Important that we have symmetry and balance in the grip. That's why we work both arms on all three axes.